Talk about how the Don Gibson Theater, now that it's up and going well, tell me how it's affected the community.
Well, it's affected the community in a lot of ways. One I talked about a little bit earlier, we wanted to raise the quality of life for folks. Don Gibson was a singer-songwriter from the 50s all the way up through the 70s, and he changed the way country music was perceived. They went from country and western to what at the time was known as country music.
Middle school, in second grade, the great Don Gibson. 1957 was a great year for Don. Oh, Lonesome Me. But it was 1962 that really did it for him as a songwriter. Now,
Don Gibson wasn't just another country music star. He was the voice of the lonely, the restless, and the brokenhearted. With timeless hits like Oh, Lonesome Me and I Can't Stop Loving You, Gibson created songs that resonated deeply with millions. But while his music was offering comfort to listeners everywhere, Gibson himself was quietly living a much darker reality. Fame brought him attention and admiration, but behind the scenes, he faced battles he kept carefully hidden, even from his closest friends. Now, over 2 decades after his passing, an unreleased interview has come to light, offering a rare glimpse into the parts of Gibson's life he'd kept private. In this footage, he opens up about a strained personal life, intense struggles with addiction, and even suggests that his wife played a role in his downward spiral. It paints a complex picture of love and loss, with allegations that cast shadows on the very relationships that had seemed closest to him. How did his most trusted relationships intertwine with his growing reliance on substances? And what else was Gibson hiding beneath the lyrics that made him famous? This isn't just the story of a successful country artist. It's a look at a hidden life of secrets, struggles, and a search for redemption that may have always been just out of reach. Join us as we delve into Don Gibson's untold story, exposing the personal turmoil and heartache that accompanied his musical triumphs and uncovering a side of his life the public has never seen before. Don Gibson's journey began far from the spotlight. Born on April 3, 1928, in the small town of Shelby, North Carolina, Gibson grew up in a world shadowed by hardship, poverty, and the isolation of rural life. Surrounded by Appalachian hills, his childhood was far from glamorous. Gibson's family was barely scraping by, struggling through the economic difficulties of the time, and music quickly became his escape. The raw, haunting sounds of country, gospel, and bluegrass that filled his surroundings were like old friends, their lyrics speaking to the loneliness and heartache he would later capture in his own music. Gibson's mother recognized something special in him early on. She was the one who introduced him to the guitar, encouraging her son to play and sing in the hopes he might find a better life than the one he'd been born into. He spent his youth practicing and learning music by ear, picking up the guitar at home and singing at local gatherings, where his talent was met with applause and admiration. By the time he reached his teens, it was clear that Gibson was not only talented, but had a gift for translating emotions into melody.
Talk about how the Don Gibson Theater, now that it's up and going well, tell me how it's affected the community.
Well, it's affected the community in a lot of ways. One I talked about a little bit earlier, we wanted to raise the quality of life for folks. And, you think of quality of life as, make sure you have the right medicines, make sure you have this, make sure you have that. But also, it's entertainment. If your music has a way of crossing boundaries for folks and bringing that whole.
Friends and family who heard him sing noticed a haunting depth in his voice that was unusual for someone his age. After World War II, Gibson made his first big move. He traveled to Nashville, hoping for a chance to make a name for himself. Nashville was the heart of the country music scene, a place where dreams could either flourish or die. With only a few dollars in his pocket and a guitar in hand, Gibson quickly learned the realities of pursuing a career in music. He struggled, took on odd jobs, and played in small clubs to make ends meet, all while honing his songwriting skills and developing his unique sound. In 1949, his hard work paid off with his first recording contract at MGM Records, but his big break came in 1958 with the release of Oh, Lonesome Me, a song that captured his heartbreak and loneliness in a way few songs could. The song rocketed to the top of the charts, cementing Gibson's place in country music. "Oh Lonesome Me" and its follow-up hit, "I Can't Stop Loving You," became classics, each resonating deeply with fans who felt the pain and vulnerability in Gibson's voice.
The great Don Gibson. 1957 was a great year for Don. Oh, Lonesome Me. But it was 1962 that really did it for him as a songwriter. Now, Ray Charles, "Georgia on My Mind," that's certainly a signature song, but so is "I Can't Stop Loving You." That was 1962. Ray Charles, written by that second grade dropout from North Carolina.
Gibson's success, however, came at a price. The pressures of fame, relentless touring, and the demands of the music industry took a toll on him early on. Friends and colleagues started to see signs that he was struggling behind the scenes, turning to alcohol to cope with the isolation and anxieties that success brought. Despite his growing popularity, Gibson felt increasingly alone, even as his songs connected him to millions. But the darkness looming over his life was just beginning to cast its shadow. As he continued to climb the ladder of success, his personal life began to fracture. His marriage, once a source of support, started showing signs of strain under the weight of fame and addiction. Gibson's story was no longer just about a talented musician rising to fame. It was quickly becoming a complex tale of a man grappling with inner demons, finding himself torn between his love for music and the pressures that threatened to unravel him. With hits like "Oh Lonesome Me" and "I Can't Stop Loving You," Don Gibson's star rose quickly. His deep, emotionally charged voice and relatable lyrics made him a household name in country music. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, he was one of the genre's top talents, filling concert halls and racking up record sales. Fans adored his songs, which seemed to lay bare his soul. But behind the scenes, Gibson's rapid ascent was chipping away at him, revealing cracks that would only grow deeper over time. Fame, for Gibson, was a double-edged sword. While his songs topped the charts, he struggled with the relentless demands that came with success. Non-stop touring, recording sessions, and public appearances left him with little time to catch his breath, let alone reflect on his own well-being. The pressures of staying on top took a toll, pushing him toward unhealthy coping mechanisms. The industry's demands left him feeling more like a product than a person, and he began to rely on alcohol to cope with the stress and the overwhelming isolation that fame often brings. His wife, who had once been his confidant and strongest supporter, saw him change under the weight of his growing dependency on alcohol. Their relationship, initially rooted in shared dreams and support, started to unravel as Gibson's addiction deepened. Arguments became more frequent, and the love that had once been their foundation was now clouded by tension, hurt, and mistrust. Friends noticed the strain between them, but few understood the full extent of the personal battles Gibson was fighting behind closed doors. With his music career demanding so much of him, Gibson's private struggles were largely concealed from the public eye.
Don Gibson Theater. Don Gibson was a singer-songwriter from the 50s all the way up through the 70s, and he changed the way country music was perceived. They went from country and western to what at the time was known as country music. It's just another facet of the music industry in North Carolina. We've had such a number of musicians come straight out of North Carolina. Don just happens to be the superstar country star.
On stage, he remained the charismatic performer who connected deeply with his audience. But as the shows ended and the lights dimmed, he was left alone with his thoughts, wrestling with the very emotions that had once fueled his music. He began to feel like he was living a double life, presenting a polished image to fans while drowning in his personal demons backstage. In the midst of this turmoil, Gibson's relationship with his wife grew even more complicated. Rumors began circulating that she might have had a role in his addiction. Whispers suggested that she had introduced him to certain substances, sparking heated debates among fans and critics alike. Gibson never directly addressed these allegations in public, but in private moments, he hinted at a feeling of betrayal. Friends and colleagues sensed a growing resentment between them, a tension that seemed to fuel Gibson's already intense reliance on alcohol. Despite these personal struggles, Gibson's music continued to resonate with audiences. Songs like "Sea of Heartbreak" and "Blue Blue Day" added to his growing list of hits, but each song seemed to reflect his life's darker undertones, touching on loneliness, regret, and heartbreak in ways that felt personal to him. The irony was not lost on those close to him. Gibson was adored for his ability to capture sadness and longing, yet he was trapped in those very emotions in his private life. The more his fame grew, the more disconnected Gibson felt from his original love of music. The joy that had once filled him with every chord he played was now overshadowed by the endless demands and expectations of the industry. He often confided to close friends that he missed the simpler days, when music was just a way to express himself, not a relentless machine that seemed to consume him. As Gibson's career reached new heights, his personal life continued its downward spiral. His marriage was in shambles, his addiction was intensifying, and his music, though successful, now felt like a bittersweet reminder of the man he used to be. In a world where he was celebrated for his vulnerability, Gibson found himself more isolated than ever, grappling with questions about his future and the person he was becoming. But the turmoil was far from over. As the years went on, his struggles would deepen, leading him to moments of both heartbreak and revelation that no one could have predicted. As Don Gibson's fame soared, his personal battles began spiraling out of control. The pressures of stardom, combined with an increasing dependency on alcohol, created a destructive cycle. Gibson, once resilient and passionate, was slowly unraveling beneath the weight of fame, loneliness, and self-doubt. Despite his success, he became increasingly isolated, pushing away friends and loved ones who tried to help, convinced he could handle it alone. At the center of this turmoil was his marriage. Initially a source of stability, his relationship with his wife grew fraught with tension as Gibson's addiction took hold. While she initially tried to support him, the stress of watching him spiral began to wear on her, and friends observed a growing distance between them. Rumors even surfaced that Gibson's wife may have unintentionally contributed to his downward spiral, allegedly introducing him to substances early in their relationship. These rumors cast a shadow over their marriage, creating conflict and suspicion within their circle. During this time, Gibson's music took on a darker, more desperate tone. Songs like Sea of Heartbreak and Lonesome No. 1 became reflections of his inner turmoil, resonating with fans on a hauntingly personal level. To the public, he was the artist who understood heartbreak, but to himself, he was a man wrestling with his own mounting despair. Retreating into his music, he spent long hours in the studio pouring his pain into each track. Yet, this dedication only further strained his relationships, with his wife feeling neglected and his friends left helpless. As his struggles intensified, Gibson's performances began to suffer. On stage, he seemed increasingly withdrawn, a shadow of his former charismatic self. Whispered concerns about his future circulated among industry insiders, worried he might not be able to sustain his career under the pressure. Yet, Gibson maintained a facade, presenting the public with an image of success, hiding the battles that were slowly consuming him. Through all of this, his wife stood by him, though their relationship had become a strained bond of shared pain and conflict. For years, she tried to help him overcome his demons, but now it seemed she too was caught in the cycle of addiction and codependency. The love they shared had become complicated, weighed down by Gibson's deep struggles and the heartbreak they both endured. As Gibson's life continued on this path, his music remained a haunting testament to his talent and turmoil. He was the man who had once captivated audiences, but now he was losing his grip on himself. His career was still intact, but cracks were showing, revealing a man whose inner battles were becoming harder to keep hidden. In the end, his life became a poignant reminder of the price that fame and addiction can exact, even on the most talented and celebrated figures. As Don Gibson's inner struggles intensified, his life continued a downward spiral. What had started as casual drinking to ease performance anxiety and cope with the pressures of fame had escalated into a full-blown dependency, dragging him deeper into isolation. Behind the scenes, Gibson was unrecognizable to those who once knew him as a vibrant and passionate performer. His addiction affected not only his career, but also his family, with every failed attempt at sobriety deepening the strain on his relationships. His marriage, which had been a source of love and stability, now became a battleground, Friends and industry insiders had long speculated on the role his wife played in his addiction, as rumors circulated that she may have enabled his early drinking and, in moments of frustration, even encouraged his behavior as a means of controlling him. While she later denied any role in his downfall, Gibson himself alluded to feeling trapped within his closest relationships. He felt abandoned and misunderstood, yet clung to the very people he resented, caught in a painful cycle of dependency and blame. At the same time, his career began to suffer noticeably. Gibson's performances were increasingly erratic, with frequent cancellations and missed rehearsals. His management and record label grew concerned, but rather than stepping back, Gibson pushed himself harder. He recorded long hours in the studio, seemingly pouring his personal anguish into songs that became hits, but left him emotionally drained. Tracks like Blue Blue Day and I Can't Stop Loving You echoed his inner battles and appealed to audiences who sensed a vulnerability in his music. Yet even as his music spoke of heartache and loss, few knew just how real these struggles were. Fans saw the image of a talented artist and assumed his life was filled with success and admiration. Behind the scenes, however, Gibson's actions were causing lasting damage. Close friends observed how he seemed to be losing control over both his career and personal life, watching as he distanced himself from everyone who tried to help him. In moments of clarity, Gibson recognized the devastation his addiction was causing. He attempted several stints in rehab and tried detoxing on his own, but the cycle of relapse was relentless. After each failed attempt, he became more despondent, sinking further into his addiction, feeling that there was no way out. Those close to him watched helplessly, uncertain whether he'd ever be able to break free. As the weight of his addiction bore down, Gibson's life became a tragic example of fame's darker side. He had achieved legendary status in the country music world, yet he was fighting a personal battle that seemed increasingly impossible to win. His story was no longer just one of talent and success, but one of resilience in the face of self-destruction. He had built a legacy that would continue to inspire, yet his struggles served as a painful reminder of how easily fame's shine could mask a far more difficult reality. And as he struggled to reclaim his life, Gibson's battle became a testament to the deep scars left by addiction and the elusive path to redemption. In the midst of his struggles with addiction and the painful end of his first marriage, Don Gibson's life took a sudden and transformative turn. The mid-1960s brought him face to face with a choice: to continue down a self-destructive path or to confront his demons and fight for a healthier, more fulfilling life. His journey to redemption was difficult, but it ultimately gave him the chance to rebuild, both as a musician and as a man. One of the most influential figures in Don's path to recovery was June Carter, who had seen similar battles with addiction in those close to her, including Johnny Cash. June offered her support, sharing her experiences and encouraging Don to face his addiction head-on. Her support and insights gave Don the perspective he needed, inspiring him to step away from the destructive habits that had taken such a toll on his career and relationships. Gibson began to see a future beyond addiction, but it was only the beginning of his climb out of darkness. While he sought professional help to manage his addiction, Don also rediscovered his love for music through a new lens. He realized that songwriting could serve as a powerful outlet, allowing him to express the struggles, regrets, and hopes that had become central to his journey. During this time, he wrote deeply personal songs that resonated with both new listeners and longtime fans. Songs like Just One Time and Sweet Dreams weren't merely hits. They were reflections of the heartache and resilience that had come to define his life. As his career gained a second wind, Don found himself with a newfound appreciation for music and life. His performances took on a different energy, as he infused his songs with a vulnerability that his audiences hadn't seen before. He no longer felt the need to put on a facade of perfection. Instead, he allowed himself to be open about his struggles, creating a stronger, more genuine connection with his fans. Around this time, he met a new love who would help bring stability into his life. She wasn't a fellow musician, but her warmth and understanding gave Don the support he needed. Their relationship was a stark contrast to his tumultuous first marriage, and she encouraged him to stay on the path of sobriety and self-betterment. This newfound companionship was a beacon for him, bringing balance and peace into his once chaotic life. With the support of those who believed in him and his own determination, Don Gibson began to rewrite his narrative. He stayed committed to sobriety, focusing on his health, his family, and his music, with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Though the scars of his past remained, he wore them proudly, understanding that they were part of his journey toward redemption. As he continued to perform, Don embraced this second chance with humility and gratitude. He was no longer the man who hid behind fame and addiction. He had become a symbol of resilience, proving to himself and his fans that it was possible to rise above life's darkest moments. But even with his new lease on life, the lasting effects of his past struggles would continue to shape his legacy. In the final chapter, we'll explore how Don Gibson's story ultimately left a mark on country music and the lessons we can draw from his tumultuous journey. As Don Gibson hit rock bottom with his addiction and the end of his first marriage, a chance for redemption appeared. By the mid-1960s, Don faced a life-changing decision: continue down a destructive path or seek healing. With the help of those who believed in him, he chose to confront his addiction and rebuild his life, both personally and professionally. One pivotal influence during this time was June Carter, who had witnessed the battles of others, like Johnny Cash, with addiction. June offered encouragement, urging Don to face his struggles and showing him that recovery was possible. Inspired by her words, he began taking steps to break free from his self-destructive habits, finally viewing a future where music and life were not overshadowed by addiction. Reconnecting with his music became a key part of his healing. Don poured his emotions into his songs, writing hits like Just One Time and Sweet Dreams, which spoke to his personal struggles, regrets, and newfound hope. These songs struck a chord with audiences and allowed Don to be vulnerable on stage, building a deeper connection with his fans. No longer hiding behind the image of a star, Don's performances were marked by authenticity, sharing his pain and resilience with those who admired him. Amidst his journey to sobriety, Don found love again. This new partner was outside the music world, offering him the stability and encouragement he needed to stay committed to a healthier life. Their relationship was a stark contrast to his past, bringing peace and balance to his life and reinforcing his commitment to self-improvement. With his music career renewed and a stable life outside of fame, Don embraced his second chance with gratitude. He remained open about his struggles, connecting with fans who found solace in his story of recovery and resilience. Though his past left scars, Don accepted them as part of his journey toward a more grounded, fulfilled life. Don Gibson's transformation became a testament to the power of redemption, not only for himself, but also as a message to others grappling with similar challenges. But even with his recovery, the impact of his past would continue to shape his legacy, a story that resonates in country music as a reminder of the human struggle and resilience. Don Gibson's journey from a small-town dreamer to a country music legend is more than a story of success. It's one of resilience, vulnerability, and lasting influence. His timeless songs like Oh, Lonesome Me and I Can't Stop Loving You captured the universal experiences of heartache and longing, resonating deeply with audiences and leaving an impact that would endure beyond his life. Gibson's willingness to confront his demons, from struggles with addiction to the pressures of fame, gave his music an authenticity that fans and fellow musicians admired. He dared to tell the raw truth, opening the door for future generations of artists to explore complex emotions and struggles through country music. Known as a singer-singer, Gibson inspired countless artists to embrace vulnerability and honest storytelling, setting a precedent that reshaped the genre's emotional landscape. By the time of his passing in 2003, Gibson's story had become one of redemption. He often reflected on lessons learned, the value of self-acceptance, the power of resilience, and the importance of connecting deeply with others. These themes, ever present in his music, became the pillars of his legacy. Today, Don Gibson remains an icon not just for his musical talent, but for his courage in sharing his story. His life serves as a reminder of the power of authenticity and the enduring strength of the human spirit, qualities that will continue to inspire and resonate with fans for generations to come.